The year is 1980. The Rubik's Cube first debuts, the US defeats the Soviet Union in ice hockey in what is considered the Miracle on Ice, and The Shining is released in theaters. This is Not Just Any Book Club. I'm your host, Justin. The other guy is Pierce. And this is called Bookends, the show not about books. Should have been called Off the Books, but it's too late to change it now. We're talking about the movie The Shining. And we have some maybe contrarian opinions, maybe some lucrative opinions about it. Who knows?
They're definitely contrarian opinions.
Yeah.
There's no way around that. Also, by the way, I got a new microphone. Hopefully the levels are good. They should be, but this is the first episode of this that we're recording with the new microphone. So if it's not good, then we'll get it fixed within an episode or two, and we apologize.
If you are new here, this is the show where we usually talk about books, but occasionally we also talk about movies in between, just before we talk about the books. Here we're talking about Stephen King, and we all coincidentally decided to read Cujo.
Yeah, coincidentally, couldn't be that we decided ahead of time to do that.
Yeah, we were experimenting. But there's another notorious Stephen King adaptation that you may or may not have heard of by the famed director named Stanley Kubrick. Not Kubrick.
If you haven't heard of it, then you have been either living under a rock or you hate horror movies. And that's the only way I could conceivably think that you've never heard of The Shining.
It is everywhere. What is it? Even the carpet is referenced in the movie Toy Story, because the carpet in Sid's house is the Shining carpet. So, whoa. Fun fact. You just really like The Shining. Yeah. And we are going to try to maybe not decipher the movie, because I don't understand what went on.
I don't think there's any, I won't say any, but I don't think there's that much deciphering to be done. It feels really random.
Obtuse.
There could be meaning behind a lot of the decisions, but they feel very off the wall, and I think that's the point. Maybe. I hope that's the point. Because if the meaning is just obtuse because, and it means something else, I have a little bit of a problem with that in film making, in any kind of media, to be honest.
Is this your first time with a Kubrick film?
I believe so.
Wow.
Let me just look up a list of his of the movies he's directed. I watched 2000. He was a writer. No, he was a writer. He was a writer on 2001: A Space Odyssey. I watched that one.
And the director.
He was the director too. It was just says writer here. That's okay. I watched that when I was very young, so I have.
That must have put you to sleep. I love that movie, but man, that is not meant for a very feeble mind such as.
Yeah, my my mom was going to work or something. I was like, Mom, what's a good movie to watch? And she's like, 2001: Space Odyssey is a really great movie, and so I put it on. Yeah. I don't remember any of it because I don't think I paid very much attention.
I think you slept through it.
I didn't go to sleep. I just did not pay attention.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've seen most of his films, aside from Lolita and Spartacus. I believe those are the two major ones that I haven't seen, besides the movie that he tried to destroy because he was not proud of that movie. But I really like Stanley Kubrick. Sometimes I think that his legacy gets a little bit overstated, because like he's Kubrick. He's like one of the sacred lambs that you just don't criticize. But I would like to say that he does have his problems, specifically with writing female characters. In this movie, I feel like it's also very evident that he doesn't know how to write female characters besides the damsel in distress. That is one of his main criticisms. He's also just very, very cold and distant, which does play into the movies that he writes, but it's just like, man, every single movie is just very cold and distant. Not to say that there's not humanity, it's just like, you're not supposed to relate to the characters, if you kind of understand what I mean by that.
I think that he wrote an okay like mother-child relationship, but the thing is, like, there was no real agency to either of those characters. It felt like obviously the focus was on
Surviving.
it was on surviving, but it felt like all the relationships, like the relationship between those two, was just necessary for the dynamic he was going for.
Yeah, wasn't
Um,
developed.
but neither of those characters had any agency compared to compared to Jack, um, which Jack is really the star of the show in this film.
Yeah.
Like without
Yeah.
him, I think this would be an average movie or
Without
below
Jack
average.
Nicholson, without Jack Nicholson, like actually giving a really good performance.
This movie like falls apart in my opinion. It's
Yeah.
like not a very good movie without him.
Yeah, we should try to summarize the plot a little bit. I
Yeah,
mean,
yes, yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
very
Well,
it's very simple, but like okay, so basically Jack Torrance is an author, and also this is nothing. This movie doesn't. I have The Shining. I read the first like chapter of it. Completely different already. But basically Jack Torrance gets a job to look over the Overlook Hotel, and in doing so, he brings his family along, and during the Overlook Hotel visit, everybody has to leave because no one wants to stay there because it's the winter. And before everybody leaves, he's warned that oh, there's a murder that happened with this guy and his two children, and his wife. And he just kind of ignores that, going, it doesn't matter. And apparently, his son, for some reason, has this ability called the Shining, and the Shining is not explained at all, aside from manifesting in this one guy and this kid, and
yeah, the guy literally is just like, "Oh, some people have this ability and they don't know, and you can connect to other people who have the same ability." And that's it.
yeah,
That was the whole explanation.
I don't even know what it does.
It's like to me it just seemed like a connection, like you could kind
Yeah,
of feel other people's emotions and feelings and talk to them a little bit. Um so
okay,
but but I, it didn't really affect anything outside of getting somebody killed. But that's
yeah.
yeah.
Onward to the plot summary. Okay. And Jack Torrance at first is like, yo, this is gonna really help me with my writing. Being all alone in this hotel that may or may not be haunted. Let's go start writing stuff. And he doesn't write anything very productive. He just goes, don't worry, I'll do it. And then his wife starts to get concerned and like, hey, why is all this crazy stuff happening to me and my son? And I'm also very scared. And then Jack Torrance just goes like, nah, man. But then he starts to go insane. There's some I also forgot to mention this, but like there's some history with he may have been abusive and he became a teetotaler. Like he just refused alcohol. And then after getting yelled at and the spooky happenings happening in the hotel, he goes back on the giggle juice and starts drinking up a bit. With some ghost that may not be real, may have just been his imagination. Who knows? It doesn't matter. Then he goes off the deep end, starts really going crazy, and he also starts getting more drunk. He may or may not be a racist. I don't know what the point of that conversation in the bathroom is. I'm being very just like speaking this up, and
The third act, you're getting into the third act, and the third
yeah,
act is just essentially like he goes crazy and tries to kill everybody, pretty
and
much.
and fails because they all
Yeah.
escape. Happy ending.
Yep. Happy ending for everyone but him because he goes
Yeah.
crazy and is like stuck in like time or something.
What did you think of the ending? Like the final shot. What's your interpretation of that?
It you can kind of take I feel like you can kind of take two interpretations, right? Like there's the supernatural interpretation, which is there's something supernatural going on and he got stuck in this like somewhere in a pocket dimension or something
Mm-hmm.
in ghost realm or whatever. And that I feel like that's a fair interpretation. There's a bunch of weird stuff going on this whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the my interpretation of it is because obviously the film deals with a lot of themes of like loneliness
Mm-hmm.
and working in isolation, um, and uh, the story I think is essentially Jack losing himself to that, and him
Mm-hmm.
being in the old timey picture is supposed to be representative of him losing himself entirely to this
Oh,
this hotel, this work in
yeah.
isolation that he's done.
My interpretation of it is that it's entirely a symbol. Basically, it's a show that evil reincarnates every time. But um, I think because the previous owner, because like again, guy sits at a hotel, murders his family, and then
And
we
Jack's
just
like, I wouldn't do that.
yeah, and he does.
So,
But I
and he
feel like
does.
yeah,
Yeah,
or
or he
tries to
tries. Yeah,
because that's my interpretation of it because I think it kind of ends on a high note because now the cycle is broken because it shows him in the past again, or was it the past? This takes place. No, this takes place in the 1920s. What am I talking about? No, in the 1920s, it just shows him
it
there.
shows him in the 20s in the picture that was taken
Yeah,
in the 20s. Yeah,
I,
even
I
though
think it's
he it takes place in modern times for the
the
yeah
70s
yeah.
or the 80s. Oops, sorry. Oh,
Ugh.
uh, yeah. I think it's just entirely metaphorical. It's just like it's not supposed to make any literal sense. Just there. You can try to ascribe meaning to it. I don't try to ascribe meaning to anything that's happened in this movie. By the way, this is my second time watching this movie, and I kind of have more of a nuanced understanding of it. Still don't entirely love this movie. I mean, yeah, this is Pierce's first time watching the movie as well.
Yeah. It feels like there's a bunch of weird stuff that happens for no reason other than
Yeah,
just like other than just Kubrick was like, it's a horror movie, spooky stuff happens
yeah.
sometimes.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah. I've kind of come to terms with that. Well, okay, so basically the backstory behind this movie of it being made is that Kubrick is basically just coming off the heels of having kind of a inferiority complex because William Friedkin, I believe, he passed on doing the Exorcist, which we were supposed to do one day. I don't know what happened. It was like he didn't want to do it, and he felt very insecure that some director was like surpassing him in making a horror movie. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make a horror movie, so I'm gonna buy the rights to this book. And like King wasn't a household name yet, and Kubrick had a knack for just like picking books and making masterpieces out of the books. But the thing is, with the books, they weren't considered literary masterpieces or anything besides Lolita. But like not even at the time, I don't think that gained reputation for it being as good as it was. He liked to choose books that were very cheap to obtain the rights to, and for The Shining, he said, "Yeah." He insulted the author. It was like, well, I read the book. I don't think it's very great, but I think I can make something great out of it. Kind of just dissing Stephen King. And basically, after getting the rights for it, he basically disregarded the book entirely because he famously this is an awful adaptation of the book, and the way that he actually had a literary professor also just try to write the script with him because he never co-wrote a script except for this one time. And oh no, he also wrote with Arthur C. Clarke, and basically he was like, finally, someone who has literary merit will help me write the script. He disregarded Stephen King's first draft of the script because it was written to his contract that you can have the author can write a first draft of the script just to like set the tone. You don't have to use it, but like these are suggestions, and we all know how that turned out with Kubrick just disregarding King entirely. And King was very disappointed with this book because he wrote it at the height of his cocaine addiction, and it was very personal to him because basically all these characters and all the things they go through just kind of mirrors the things that he went through and how he felt. Like I think he was being estranged from his son, his marriage was getting on a beat down. So just imagine writing some of your most personal work and having it be mangled into this pop horror film and then being panned. So yeah, I don't know how I got to this conversation, but that was the backstory.
Yeah. Um Essentially, I just looked up the differences. Essentially, like there's lots of details that are different, and the main thing that appears to be like there's lots of details are different, and characters are different, and character motivations are different. But the biggest thing that seems different to me is that the movie focuses on the fact that a lot of this might be in Jack's head. A lot of it might be part of his descent into madness. It does appear to be at least a little bit real. Like there's some kind of supernatural stuff
Yeah,
going on between the kid and Wendy also seeing it. But you could also say like the
yeah,
Jack is helping them descend into madness. But whatever. It appears upon a first watch to be at least somewhat like supernatural, but it definitely is a is more of a focus on
it's the
maybe
psychological part.
this is fake. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe this is all in Jack's head. Yeah, or at
yeah,
least most of it.
yeah. So I haven't read the book yet. I plan on reading the book. It's on my shelf. Maybe I'll revisit this book and or revisit this movie and hate it more. I don't know. But we can get into the weeds about what makes this movie not our thing, because I think, as you can kind of tell, we kind of have lukewarm opinions on it. Um,
I think it's deserving of being a classic. I don't think it's deserving of being called a masterpiece, like a lot
yeah,
of people say. Um,
uh, ve-
that's basically my opinion in a nutshell on this.
yeah. I think it tries to do a lot of things, and a lot of and what it tries to do, it hits, but there are a lot of misses with it trying to reach for it. Because with what Pierce said, it's like, oh, it's throwing a bunch of things at the wall and seeing what sticks. And I think it's there's a little bit more nuance of that. I think it's more like he's going for what emotionally makes sense by just
Hmm.
showing images of just this horrific stuff, and then like it doesn't make any sense and it's not really explained. It's the fear of not knowing that kind of makes you just feel uneasy. Um, but the thing is, he does it way too much. It's very obtuse, and you're just kind of wondering, like, I don't understand what's going on at this point.
I think maybe it's because I've been watching more movies recently, but I think this film had like a super clear three act structure. Like it was
Yeah,
very clear
yeah,
where maybe not the exact second that like the next act started, but you could tell like I'm in the second act right now. I'm in the third like and basically running through that I was very intrigued in the first act, you know, hearing so much about this movie and then it opens and it's a
it's a
little
really
weird.
long credit
Right, it's
sequence.
really long credit sequence. In the second act, I was intrigued, but I also felt a little bit bored, to be honest.
Yeah,
Like the second act, it's there's a lot going on that's weird and intriguing, but it's also it kind of drags, I think. And I think the thing that makes this movie deserving of being a classic is A, Jack Nicholson's performance, first of all. Like this is an amazing performance. Um, and then B, the third act I think is essentially perfect to me. I
it's
think
the
like
middle.
the third act to me is um obviously there's all the famous scenes. There most of this movie's famous scenes come in the third act for a reason. They're really good. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Here's Johnny. The maze scene. Like the reason that all of those scenes are iconic is it's for a good reason. Like it's well acted. Um, the actress who plays Wendy feels a lot more natural, probably because she's mostly screaming, doing
Yeah,
less conversational stuff. Um, and it just everything that or no, I won't say everything because there's that bear scene, but most of what is attempted in the third act, I think, really lands like sticks the landing and really
mm,
works. Um, and I think like between Jack's performance and the third act, this movie is definitely a classic, even though I don't think it's a masterpiece because those first two acts, not everything, not everything sticks.
yeah. Um, my opinion is essentially the same as yours. Because like there are some pacing issues. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So this movie was originally longer, but like he Kubrick famously has final cut, and he cuts some scenes out. So this movie could have been a lot longer. Some scenes like he cut out just so basically you don't have any explanation for what's going on. Which I mean does kind of work to the movie's benefits. Um, I really like the psychological parts of this movie, where basically it's just like Kubrick again. He plays into what emotionally makes sense rather than what logistically makes sense. Um, I also don't like the supernatural parts, but I'll get to that later. Like, what is it like with Jack's walk into the hotel bar? He goes into this empty room and it's very empty. But then when he sits down, he gets a drink, and he's very ambiguous if he's talking to himself or not. But I think it's very kind of clearly indicated that it's just him talking to himself. He's alone in the room, and he starts drinking. And then when Wendy finds him, there's no one there. But for some reason, Jack is acting drunk still, and that was really cool to see. And I kind of wish it did more rather than relying on the supernatural aspect, because I think that Kubrick has in him to make a good psychological horror movie. Maybe not a supernatural horror movie, because the supernatural part is where Kubrick's part for me.
Yeah.
It's just like too many things just kind of are not explained, which again isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you really have to like stick it through. Like that bathtub scene, I don't get it. Like
And
what is?
it's really weird because it feels like he just wanted to throw some supernatural things in there to be scary and for no other reason. Because the scenes in the ballroom are all great. They're all amazing. Um, maybe there's one I'm forgetting that wasn't as good, but I'm pretty sure they're all really good. And like that's obviously that's supernatural. But then the famous twins are just like kind of there to be spooky, I guess.
Yeah,
Like it lands on like an emotional level, like you said, but they're just kind of there. I kind of expected them to be more involved for how like famous they are.
yeah, they're iconic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
but it's just it it just doesn't land all the way. But like it is strengthened by like the way that the sets are made, because apparently he spent like a year in pre-development and then like spent a year shooting it, because he made his actors do hundreds of takes. Like I actually did look up the number. There was also some allegations of abuse on the set, which shame on you, Cooper, for doing that. But surprisingly, it's really nice to the kids, because apparently the kids did not even know that they were in a horror movie up until they actually watched it. So, fun fact right there. Um, but basically, the sets are really good. I like how the hotel is basically, it's Kafka esque, because you can't really make any sense of it, as how it operates. Like this room leads to
It's
here.
it's not yeah, it's not really clear at all like where anything is. Like things seem randomly closer than they were, or further away than they should have been.
Yeah,
Um,
it is it like he knows how to set the atmosphere. Plus, the music actually kind of drives home to the point like you're supposed to be unsettled, and it does. It kind of carries the weight of kind of the writing here a bit, but like yeah, the score is also does it like makes things very dreadful when they don't need to be, but it works. I really appreciate that, and the camera, how there's like some really long tracking shots, and how Kubrick just allows you to bathe in silence. Like when Danny's riding on the bike, I'm like, oh. In any other film, this would have been just like cut or excised or kind of shortened or something like that. But the tracking shot of just him riding on a bike, it doesn't feel boring or anything. It just feels like, oh man, something could happen. Turn around the corner, something else could pop up. He
yeah.
does it like, yeah, that was cool.
I wish all the moments like that landed
Yeah,
like the tricycle one did, but they don't, unfortunately.
yeah.
Um, I also to bring up some things that Kubrick did with this movie that I thought this was kind of funny watching it. Um, there's of course a famous trope in horror movies where
Uh,
the black man dies first. I
mm,
thought it was it like it's not funny because obviously like that's a negative trope. Like you
yeah,
know the black person shouldn't die first, but he was in the whole movie, so it's like still kind of funny that that the little boy did his shining thing with the guy who works at the hotel, and he came to like try and save him, and he's the first person to die. um I it's not funny, but it also like kind of ironically is a little
yeah,
bit funny that trope made it into the movie just for some reason,
yeah. I
somehow,
don't
some way.
really, yeah, yeah. And like, I guess, all right. I guess since we're bringing up, that also brings up to the other trope of like called the magical minority. There's another name for it by Cornway Sparkly,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
basically he's there to just help the white people understand what's going on, and he's always nice and amiable. It's I I've come to terms with this character. I don't think Scatman Crothers was a good actor, or I think I haven't seen his other movies, but I don't think he was rightly cast in this movie because he's always
Mm.
so jovial and he brings a lot of life to the film, but like it also kind of contrasts with everybody else, which is kind of just miserable. It's something. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I feel like he wasn't the most important character, but he's just a lot of the scenes just with him just don't strike well with me. Like the scenes where he's just calling the radio station, or not the radio station, or whatever
The
the
Rangers,
ranger
yeah.
station. It's like, man, the way that he talks, it could have been a lot shorter.
It
Just explaining
it
stuff.
yeah, it was certainly like I felt like the beginning was kind of well done, but I almost like didn't trust him enough to like for them to build a relationship, him and the little boy. Because
Mhm.
the beginning he's made out to seem like scary, like very scary for this like small child. And I almost like didn't trust him still as they like continued building this like mini relationship. It was strange.
I believe that this movie actually holds the Guinness World Record for the most amount of scenes, or most amount of takes taken for one scene, and I believe it was with Scatman. I'm trying to I'm trying to find the source on this.
Is it the one where he's like talking to the to Wendy and then his head like turns or
No, I think
no?
it's a very simple scene.
Oh.
Uh, it's just like Kubrick took more than 60 takes of the scene where the camera simply slowly zooms in on Scatman Crothers in his bedroom. Why? Why?
So weird. So
I
weird.
okay. Well, I yeah. So
Speaking of Kubrick taking a million takes to film a scene, um, one thing that I mentioned to you before this was that I thought, what's her name, Shelley Duvall felt really stilted, like that kind of, you know, old actress from decades ago, where
yeah,
it feels really stilted and like very like they keep their voice at like a pretty flat pitch. It's very like pleasant. Um,
slander.
I listen. I didn't. I thought that her performance
Yeah,
felt really unnatural, and you
yeah,
said that it might have been because of
exhaust. Yeah,
Kubrick exhaustion from Kubrick's
yeah,
retakes. But I don't know. I outside of the third act, I didn't really like her all that her performance all that much. The character's okay, but her portrayal of the character, I don't think is great, and maybe it is partially because of Kubrick. What do you think?
yeah. She screams a lot in the movie.
Yeah,
I don't
especially the
think.
third act.
Yeah, they don't give much depth to her character. Outside of just hey, try to survive this, and like I would love more scenes with her and her son or something like that. Like
I
something to
think
give some humanity. Or
right. I think that's the most like I said, that's the best relationship that she has is to her son,
it's
and I
kind
feel
of a
like
way implied.
yeah, I
Yeah,
feel like
what is
more of that would really kind of make her character. I don't know how much it would improve the movie, but it would make her character a lot better certainly.
yeah, I mean the first scene we see with her is her talking to the therapist, going, "Oh, my husband beats him, but that's so long ago, so not really a great character right there."
Yeah, like I don't the thing is it's like so I feel like it's kind of like shrugged off that he used to do that to the point where I'm not sure if Kubrick was trying to make a huge point about it because he was like it's played as this like oh he did it one time and then he gave up alcohol forever because he did it while he was drunk.
Yeah, I
That's the way it's played, and I don't unless I'm remembering incorrectly. It does obviously it's played that like he has thoughts of doing it more often. I think, but it's played that he only got the better of him like one time to
mm,
me.
yeah. Um, I mean, okay, that also digs into my kind of biggest complaint about the movie is that his descent into madness happens way too quickly. Just like it goes from like the first 15 minutes where he's calm and then just goes from 0 to 100 almost really fast.
I think I agree and disagree. I think it's like I think the acceleration of it is too fast. Like there needs to be more of a curve. It's kind of like he's flat and then after like a few days he's going like almost straight up.
Yeah.
I don't think he's like quite crazy immediately, but he's definitely the progression is way too quick.
Yeah, okay. Like, okay, some of the most common complaints I've heard about this movie, and even King was like, "Why did you cast Jack Nicholson? Because he looks crazy before you even see him." Because like again, this movie was very personal to King about like him battling his alcohol addiction, and then to uh, allegedly, I'm not saying this is what a bunch of critics said, that like, oh, you're casting Jack Nicholson, the guy with the crazy eyebrows that looks insane already. So, um, I guess in a way that kind of justifies what happens, but I don't agree with it. I would love to see just more character development with him, moments of humanity, etc., etc. But we didn't really get that, did we?
I I mean I agree that he looks crazy. I thought he looked pretty okay. I feel like I you come into it with a little bit of bias because you know, right, that this guy is about to be functionally insane.
Yeah,
I felt like he at the very beginning he looked a little awkward, uh, and because he clearly had problems with his family even before going crazy, and he clearly was like awkward going into the job interview, even though he
yeah,
made like a couple of jokes. So I think like I don't know. I think he did a pretty decent job. The beginning, and also if you want to go the route of like he casted a person who already kind of looks crazy, I feel like it is kind of clear that this guy has some issues before he's even
yeah,
in the hotel. So it kind of makes sense from that front if you want to look at it like that.
yeah. I mean, I like the performance overall, but like, it is kind
Yeah.
of a valid criticism that went from 0 to 100 a little bit too quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Again, going back to what we said, this I mean he kind of makes the movie. Like to me I agree this movie should be a classic. It's not again it's not a masterpiece. Without Jack Nicholson, I'm not going to say with anybody else, maybe they could have cast someone as good or
hard
better,
to imagine.
but it's hard to imagine, right? This movie to me falls apart without Jack Nicholson. It's not even a classic. It's like a I don't even know how good it would be. It would be I think pretty bad actually.
Yeah,
to put it frankly.
yeah. Which what do you think of the kid actor, Danny Lloyd?
It's a child actor. Like
I don't want
I
to be
didn't
too
have
hard.
I didn't have high expectations coming in. It's a child actor. Like you
Yeah,
can't. I don't unless they're like acclaimed to be a great child actor, which they rarely are. I don't feel like you can really go super hard on them. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Especially back in this time. I feel like nowadays there's higher expectations for
yeah.
child actors, but back then there really wasn't.
Just the way that he said red rum and having that be expected as scary. I'm like, Kubrick.
Yeah.
Maybe maybe we should kind of not focus on this kid right now. Red rum finger.
Maybe you could at least like do some edits to the sound or like
Yeah,
a
I don't
voiceover or something or
I don't know what he was trying to accomplish there. I yeah. By the way, what do you think of the bear scene? Hold on, we
uh,
can't.
very that was very weird.
No one has been able to explain that. It's not anywhere in the book, I believe, either.
I'm not really sure. There I mean homosexuality was referenced, right? I'm not going crazy. There's one guy on his knees and the other guy was like sitting in a chair,
It
right?
was on a bed.
It was on a bed. Okay. Um I don't know what he would be trying to say about that. Uh
Especially that moment of time when she's running for her life.
yeah.
I mean, I think this is also the first time that she's seen ghosts, right? This is like Shelley Duvall's character, Wendy, seeing the any ghosts. So just seeing that bear go down on
Apparently,
that
the
bear.
scene exists in the book,
It
but it's
does.
a man dressed as a dog
Maybe it might have been a dog.
performing the act on one of the Overlook's owners, who was bisexual. So it's
You gotta read the book to
yeah.
understand. But in the context of the movie, I've got no idea. So,
This article that I just pulled up says that it might be a reference to sexual abuse, and then they also say like nobody actually knows. So your guess is as good as ours. So I don't know, sexual abuse, that maybe, I guess that could. They point to. It looks like they point to Danny laying on stuffed bears. Like he has like a bunch of
oh,
stuffed bears as a to point to that. But that I don't know. It makes sense to me, but it would also that also brings like a much darker, like
yeah,
this movie is already dark, obviously, but sexual abuse like references towards to make a point, obviously with a child is
yeah, yeah. That's not.
makes it a lot darker very quickly.
Yeah, let's not end on that note.
Yeah, let's not let's
Let's
not.
see. But yeah, it's a good movie. Not something I would rewatch every year.
It's a good movie. It drags too much to rewatch a lot, in my opinion.
Yeah. What is your favorite horror movie, Pierce?
That I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I don't even know,
Oh,
honestly.
okay.
To be oh, The Thing. Never mind. I'm
Oh
sorry.
yeah,
I
the
do
thing.
know. It's The Thing. Duh. Obviously.
I like Alien myself.
Alien is good. However, Alien is also, I think it's like I think it's kind of like a popcorn horror movie, Justin. Like it's very good, but it feels like very like I don't know. It feels kind of one note. I like it. I'm not. I don't. It feels like an insult telling you that your favorite horror movie is a
Yeah.
popcorn horror
No,
movie.
I get it too. I
Yeah,
I just really enjoy it.
it feels like an insult because you've like you're the movie
No,
buff
no. Yeah,
friend in
but
our
like
group, so it
no,
feels
everybody's
very insulting to
no,
say
no,
that.
no.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
We're ending a good note now. Well, actually, no. I think we're maybe ending on a bad note because oh man, Pierce just insulted me.
Just trashed your favorite horror movie.
Go
No,
back and talk about
I like Alien. I like Alien also, but yeah. Rating on this movie: good movie,
I don't,
good classic. Not a masterpiece. Not a 10 out of 10 for me, but it's up there. It's pretty good.
yeah. Just don't make me. By the way, Pierce, I think you might really like A Clockwork Orange.
I
Just
probably, I
it's about
probably would, but I have not watched it. So
government. So yeah, there you go. Right, ending on a good note now. Okay,
maybe we'll watch that movie in the future. Ooh.
I have some
Uh,
very I have interesting opinions about that movie, but
okay, sounds good.
yeah, okay.
But join us. Well, I guess we're uploading this episode late, so join us in a couple of days for our book club meeting on Cujo by Stephen King. We'll be diving in. Spoiler alert: I think some of us liked it a little bit more than others, um, based off of our Goodreads ratings. We'll see.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So join us for that. Please follow us on Twitter at Not Just Any Pod. You'll find information on this podcast as well as our role-playing game podcast, Not Just Any RPG, which you can find at twitch.tv/Not Just Any RPG and on Spotify and YouTube and stuff.
We stream every
Please, if you
Friday.
we stream every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Please, if you enjoyed this episode of this podcast, though, go ahead and give us a like, a rating, whatever it is on whatever platform you happen to be
happy.
listening on. Make us happy. Give us that rating. And I think that's about it.
Goodbye for me.